everybody. Welcome back to another choice hacking email psychology breakdown. Today, we are talking about a welcome email from Headspace Plus. If you're not familiar with Headspace, they're kind of like Calm, they're a meditation app, and they have a free version of the app, and then they also have Headspace Plus. So if you have upgraded to Headspace Plus, this is the email that you would receive. I'm going to take this email, break it down step by step, and talk about some things that are working, some things that aren't, and the psychology behind why. Now, everything that we're going to cover is on the screen right now. So if you want to pause, take a little screen grab before we continue, then go ahead and do that. Great. So let's start with the subject line. Now, this is a pretty straightforward subject line. It just says, "Welcome to Headspace Plus." I've talked about this in a couple of my other videos, but it really does feel like a missed opportunity to not include a tiny bit of personalization here. Just to have the person's first name would be great. Obviously, they've had to provide some kind of payment information, so Headspace should just have their first name. It's a nice way to capture people's attention and make the email a little bit more engaging. Next, let's talk about the headline. Now, I really like this headline, and I like it for a couple of reasons. First of all, as I've said here, it offers some gentle support without putting too much pressure on users. Headspace and their brand is about mental health support. It's about offering some of that gentle, friend-like support. That's their brand. And if you got an email from them that said like, "Let's meditate every day for the next year," I mean, that would be putting a lot of like undue pressure on the users. So I do like this idea that you've done enough just by upgrading to Plus or even by using the free version of Headspace. So just showing up is important. I think that's lovely. So now let's talk a little bit about the psychology and behavioral science behind why I like this. There's two principles here that I do talk about quite a bit in my work, and that would be post-purchase dissonance, which is kind of a fancy way of saying buyer's remorse. So this idea that when someone purchases something, they're taking a little bit of a risk. And it's common for people to feel like after they've taken that risk that they're not quite sure they've done the right thing. And the way that I often talk about countering that is with something called confirmation bias, which normally is talked about in a very negative light. This idea that people are very receptive to, they remember information that agrees with something that they already believe or do or feel. We can kind of take a positive spin on confirmation bias and say, in this moment of opportunity where post-purchase dissonance or buyer's remorse could be a big risk, then we need to assure users that they've made the right choice. And I think that Headspace has done a really good job of that. They also have sort of this confirmation bias approach in the paragraph down here, which we'll get to in a second. "Well done on making a commitment towards a healthier, happier life, but showing up is only the first step. It takes consistent practice to feel the benefits of Headspace. Don't worry, though, we'll be with you every step of the way through notifications and emails." It's another way that, yes, they're offering that gentle support, but they're also saying, this is something that you need to commit to. But I like that that's not how they led with the headline. The point of the email is to get people to meditate, to use Headspace Plus, but not have them feel like so much pressure, like it's something that they have to add to their day, like cold showers or waking up at 4 a.m. So let's talk a little bit about the header image here. It's eye-catching. It's an on-brand visual. I mean, it is very Headspace. They use these cartoons quite a bit, these like cartoon avatars to show progress. In this case, it kind of looks like a little Superman cloud character that's taking off into space. It's nice. I do think it's taking up a lot of space without doing much of a job. And this is a mistake that I see in a lot of email marketing. It's like we put an image there because, I don't know, that's where you put an image, but the image isn't actually doing anything. It's just there to be an image. And that's fine. I think that's how a lot of people who put together these emails just approach it because that's the template and that's how we've always done things. So we're going to continue to do that. And in a lot of instances, it's the right thing to do. If you're an e-commerce brand or, like some of the abandoned cart emails I've talked about earlier, and you need to show some product, I mean, that's a beautiful place to do that. It's exactly what the customer needs from the email, and it's exactly what you as a brand need to deliver in the email as well. I'm not saying that they shouldn't put an image here. I just wonder, is this taking up a lot of space without doing much of a job? Because you do have to really think about how people are going to experience this email. And that is quickly, they're going to scan it, they might open it and then delete it right away, but that's something you can test. Okay, so let's move on to the supporting copy. You'll remember I read it out earlier, but it starts with "Well done on making a commitment towards a healthier, happier life." This is really lovely supporting copy. It makes users feel like they've done something good for themselves. It's the first step on a journey towards better mental health. I do think the way that they've structured it is not ideal. It's just a big paragraph, which is fine. And it's probably like that because you've got this big header image, like taking up a lot of space, and they want to get people to the meditate now, like call to action as fast as they can. But the problem is it's going to be very difficult to get someone to want to engage with this paragraph of text. People see this and they get a little bit like overwhelmed, cognitive overload a little bit. They should probably chunk up this paragraph and potentially streamline it or just show it in a much more visual way. So the psychology behind this is chunking. It basically says if you break a lot of information into smaller little chunks, it can make it easier to understand, digest, remember, and even engage with because it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And last, we have the CTA, the call to action. Now, this button is, it's a nice call to action. Meditate now. It's getting people to do something that's good for them. It's difficult to notice. I ran this through the predictive AI that I use with my clients, and some of the other businesses that use this particular tool are places like LVMH, Coca-Cola, so like big brands that trust this particular tool, and I trust it with my clients as well. The contrast here is not great, not necessarily because of the color of the button, but because of the size and the weight of the font. The psychology behind this is something called visual salience. So basically, how likely am I to notice something? And when I'm likely to notice something, I'm much more likely to engage with it. Some of the ways that our eyes and brains decide what's visually salient and what we want to pay attention to, there are contrast, size, luminosity, and there's a handful of other ones. But for something like this, honestly, like contrast and size are the two big ones. I think the size of this button is really nice, actually. But I think the contrast is not quite working. And part of the reason that the contrast isn't quite working is because they've got nice contrast behind the CTA button itself, but between the button and the actual text, the text needs to be bigger, heavier, a bigger contrast behind the background that's behind it. So that's it. It's a pretty straightforward email. I think Headspace has done a really good job here. There's a lot of things to learn from this email. If you want to learn more about using psychology and behavioral science to improve the effectiveness of all kinds of marketing, including digital marketing and email marketing, I'd recommend joining my free choice hacking newsletter. It's 8,000 folks from brands like Google, Coke, and Disney, and a bunch of startups and small business people as well. You can find the link in the description below, or it's just choicehacking.com/read. If you're a hands-on founder or the head of a marketing department, and you want to get some feedback like this on your email marketing, there's a link in the description below where you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me, where we can talk a little bit about your challenges with email marketing and how I might approach those. There's also a link for a customer experience audit where I take 30 minutes. I respond to between 1 and 3 emails, and I can give you my thoughts in the same way that I've done with this Headspace email. If you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, it'd be great because it helps other people find these videos too. See you next time.